Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Let's Sketch Tech with Marlena Compton and our Visualize IT series that we've been putting on for the last few months. This one is the last of 6 workshops that we've done in partnership with Marlena and her team and a few other awesome sketchnoters in the community. So we're really excited to have you. So we're going to put our little code of conduct in the chat box right now. And if you have any questions, you can add them to the chat box as well. Marlena is going to take them up periodically throughout the workshop. And a little bit more about Marlena. She initially learned how to sketch out softwares using IBM's Rational Roads System Architect and the UML. And this is complex stuff. I'll let her introduce herself as well. But she spent 17 years building software companies like IBM and Atlassian. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Yep.
And she's okay, great. And she's an expert at communicating very, very technical concepts and processes with a quick hand-drawn sketch, which is what we'll be doing today. At IBM, she actually created digital drawings and diagrams for IBM Garage to communicate their processes and development work to global audiences. So she's definitely very, very qualified, and we're very lucky to have her. And I'll let her answer and go a little bit more deeper into that. But currently, Marlena runs her own creative tech shop called Appearworks, where she organizes the Let's Sketch Tech community and teaches workshops like this that bring the arts to tech. So without further ado, I'm just going to pass it over to Marlena. I will say, though, if you are following along, please tweet it out or LinkedIn or Instagram using the hashtag VisualizeIT so we can see it, share it, and just see how everyone's doing. All right, thanks, Marlena.
Thank you so much, Iman. And I want to take a minute to thank the Microsoft Reactor team and Iman and Nydia and everyone else who was involved, because I'm just so impressed with all of this organization and helping with the setup and things like that. So really want to thank y'all. And yeah, let's get started. So I have popped 2 links in the chat. The first one is the Let's Sketch Tech Patreon. And so if you want to continue exploring doodling and the intersection of arts and tech, I highly encourage you to check out our community. It's been going for a few years, but I just started this Patreon last year because people want a way to get together. So in the Patreon, we have things like podcasts. You get free access to the meetups, depending on your level. Get access to free workshops, depending on your level, things like that. And then we have a weekly Create and Connect, where you can show up and for half an hour, we just do some quiet doodling together, and then we chat and share about it. And it's super fun. So the other link, and I'll show you more about this later, is I've put together this thing called the Sketch It Kit. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so I can show you some slides and show you some drawings and things like that. So I'm going to share my desktop. Share. And I hope everyone's doing well. I'd really love to know where everyone is this morning. So pop something in the chat about like where you are and kind of what brought you to our workshop today, because I'd love to hear from you all. And so you should be able to see my desktop at this point. So I'll bring up my camera. So this is my desk. Oh, it looks like it froze. Oh, this is going to be exciting. And I'll show you my slides. We'll refresh the camera in a bit. I'm not too concerned about it for the moment. And so you should see some slide, like a slide at this point. And here we go. So our workshop today is called Sketch the Tech. And we're going to go on a trip. I know in the pandemic, everyone's feeling super stuck and nobody can travel. I love traveling. I've never been to Italy. Always wanted to go. I'm planning a post-pandemic trip, but yeah, like I am really tired of being stuck at home. I'm sure everyone else is too. And yeah, it's a thing. So today we are going to go to Italy. And in particular, we are going to go to Florence, Italy. And just to give you kind of like, just imagine yourself in the Tuscan countryside with your glass of wine or whatever beverage you want. And we're outside in this beautiful, beautiful country air in the Italian countryside. And we're going to do some drawing today. And we're going to do different types of sketching. I really want to emphasize that there is brain science behind all of the things we're going to be doing today. And there's like a reason why I'm training people to do this with your hands versus with just computer, like Visio. I used Visio for many, many years. It's wonderful. And I am not saying to stop using any of those things, but what I want us to understand is the difference between when you need to connect with your own brain through your hands and when it's time to put it on something digital. And so that's kind of the distinction that we have going on. And that's what we're going to play with today. We're going to play with the side that's like, instead of using Visio, you are connecting your brain with your hands and your eyes. And sharing it with your team. And I think you'll find that it kind of makes it easier to get going. And I'll share this, like I know I've mentioned this Sketch It kit. I'll show that to you in a bit, but for right now, I want to get started with a story and continue on our trip through the Italian countryside because Italy. So the opening of our story is that Leonardo da Vinci was born in this countryside around Florence, and he's sort of the focal point of our opening story today. And you'll start to see why. So he was born in the countryside around Florence, and I love this photos. I really hope y'all and drink in these photos and kind of drink in the detail and the color and the landscapes and just kind of, let your brain go a little bit. We're traveling. Yes, so he was born outside of Florence to this family of people who were notaries, which it sounds kind of odd these days because notary is usually something you go to a shop for and you pay $5 and that's it. But back in these days, in the Renaissance, writing was the technology. And so being able to write, like not everyone knew how to read and write, but you might, have paperwork. I'm sure paperwork existed back then just as it does today. You might need someone to write things for you. And so this, you would go to this notary or this company and they would write something for you, or they would, they would translate for you. And so writing really was the technology of the day. And I know at Microsoft, I think Bill Gates bought parts or all of Leonardo's sketchbook, which is pretty amazing. And that's what we're looking at here. So as you can see on the right, yes, I do know left and right, Leonardo had very good handwriting. We'll kind of, here I'll zoom in for you so you can see a little better over here. These are his, and this is like his writing and his doodling and stuff like that. But as you can see, he had very good penmanship. And he would spend hours doodling, just hours and hours. So when it was time for him to go and get a job and start learning a trade, his family apprenticed him to an artist in Florence. Hello. Do what I want. There we go. Good enough. And throughout his life, Leonardo did so much sketching, and he's known as just a master artist. And so one thing that I want to kind of bring out here is that his drawings were very technical. Since the pen was the technology, pen and ink were the technology, any kind of medical drawings, like he was well known for his medical drawings, and he was so fascinated by the human body. And he did so much of this, and his study of the human heart was considered, one of the, he was an expert on this. And I actually have a book about Leonardo's studies of the human heart, and doctors still use these sketches today because there truly are some bits that is just very difficult to model, and to add in the motion and process and whatever. So he did so much of this, and for work, he started out apprentice to an artist, but later on he kind of developed into someone who could draw out and invent these large weapon systems. So at this point in time, Italy was not a country. Italy was a bunch of random little kingdoms. And all of these random little kingdoms were always defending each other from some attack or another. And so how Leonardo made his money was he would work for these different kingdoms, and he would help them come up with these technical plans for all of these different weapon systems. And that's how he made his money. In fact, and he got to travel around doing this. He went all over Italy, and also he traveled and did a lot of work in France as well. In fact, that's where he ended his life. So something that Leonardo knew and was very tuned into was the power of drawing. And when he was doing his drawings, these anatomical studies, these hands, this is a very famous sketch of hands. And I want to zoom in on this. So what you can see in here is that Leonardo was not creating a finished output. He was not intending to sell this. If you look in here, you can see he was really working in this drawing. He was like, well, how does this, is this thumb doing this, or is it doing this or that? And then he got, it looks like he got bored and drew a little grumpy face over here. So this is a very active drawing where he is investigating what is happening through drawing things out. And I think that is really what he put together, and what set him apart during this time is he was able to leverage this ability of his to draw and think through problems and putting it together. And that's why, I think that's why he's so fascinating to me. And as I've kind of been learning about why does our brain need to draw, it's been really interesting to read about Leonardo and how he connected up all of this together. It's pretty cool. So I love the detail in these, and think about technical, the technical things that we are working on today. It's, at this moment in time, this is a huge crossbow, whatever thing. And all of these intricate parts and whatnot. And think about the systems that you're working on today. one thing we are going to be working with is like if there's some kind of system that you work with, computer system, we're gonna play around with some drawing about that today. And so yeah, like, so here we are. Let's zoom back out for a minute. And we're back at our estate in the Italian countryside. And it is time to put on your sketching hat. So now is a good time to get some paper, get some pens. I'm going to reconnect my camera and we're going to start going. So if you need to grab a little something to drink or, oh, there we go, it's working, yay. Whatever. And I want to show y'all what is in this sketch it kit that I'm going to keep going on about. So the story behind this is, so I was a software engineer and I would go to all these tech conferences, and I've done so much sketchnoting, and eventually I organized a conference about it. And as I've gotten to know people in the sketchnoting community, you know, we all talk about tools and getting started. Like, what do you need to get started with sketchnoting? And so I specifically put this together to give people exactly the tools they need to get started. Now, this is not every tool you ever want to use for sketching or sketchnoting, but these are like basic things. It's like, I don't know what to use. Just go and buy this. It'll have different things in it, and I'll show you what's in here. And I'm actually going to use this for all of my sketching today. So you're going to get three of these books. This is recycled paper because I'm very into being sustainable. And this is paper with dots. So I prefer dots or gridded paper so that when you take a photo, you see your drawing and not the actual lines on the page. And if you're gathering up your supplies right now, I would suggest blank paper. So here's my one. And I have a little bit of like stuff from some creative journaling stuff that I did, but I'm going to open to a blank page. I was telling Iman as we were setting up, I wish y'all could see my setup because I have the tiniest desk and it is doing so much in such a small bit of real estate. So let's see. So what else do you get in here? So I include several pens. Like, pens are like a hot topic of conversation in sketchnoting. Like, what kind of pen should you use? I have included several pens because this gives you a chance to just try out these different ones without having to buy 5 of each or whatever. All of these are incredibly nice. Pilot Precise, V5, V7. These are different thicknesses. Uniball. Most people end up being either Team Uniball or Team Pilot Precise. But this is also, the Uniball is also, you've got 0.5 and 0.7. And I also include a white Uniball Signo pen because sometimes you want to add a little white accent on top of your black ink. That's really good for this. You also get two Tombow dual brush markers. And let me show you what these do. So you get 2 tips. This is like your basic tip that you can use for writing. Hi. And then on the other end, you have a brush. And I love the brush because, well, I like them both, but the brush is very handy for if you want to very quickly write letters that are larger. Hi. And, you can kind of play around with it and see what kind of different things you can do. I include 2 of these because every kit has a black one. And then I also include a lighter color. This one is gray. Sometimes it's a pastel. And the reason why I include this is because you'll probably want at least one color in your drawings, but you don't want to have 50 colors. So I'm going to create a shadow on this with this pen. And see how that makes it kind of pop off the page. You can add a little bit more if you want a little bit more. So this is why I include all of these different things, and it just makes it easier to get started with, well, what kind of materials do I even need? I don't know. This kind of just puts it all in one place, and it's in a cute little canvas bag. This is canvas because I don't want to include any more plastic than is necessary. Oh, and one other thing that you get in here is washi tape. So this is just tiny little roll of, it could be masking tape, but this is smaller, it's thinner, and it's great for if you want to cover something up, you can do stuff like that. So enough about that, but it's worth understanding what some of the tools are. And I encourage you to be trying some different pencils and pens and colors today, just to see what does it look like? What do I prefer? It might be that a certain color makes you think about a particular part of your system. Your brain is really good at making those kind of connections that are just they're kind of not a straight line. Okay, what pen do I want? I'm going to use this pen today. And I'll keep the white one out, and I'll keep the Tombow out. Might use those. Okay, so hopefully everyone has their paper and tools and stuff, and you have your drawing hat. And so let's think about some kind of system that you work with. And I actually first I want to ask Iman, are there any questions so far?
Nope, not at the moment.
Okay, if you do have questions about supplies, pens, colors, whatever, pop them into the chat, and in a minute I'll come back and I'll answer those questions. But in the meantime, let's think about what kind of system do you work on? And I'm going to throw a few different things out there while we're getting our brains warmed up. Just when you think of your system, do a little before sketch, right? And, I'm going to stay here for a minute to let people think. And maybe it's IoT. Maybe it's email encryption something. I know somebody who is working on sketches for something like that. Maybe it's a web app that does something specific. Maybe you work on a desktop app. Or maybe you work on some kind of weird single sign-on something. Or maybe you have a favorite language or a language that you're learning in, I don't know, JavaScript arrays, JavaScript array functions. I'm just thinking of different things that you could potentially try drawing out today. Just different things like that. And give it a go. Let's try sketching a system. So I'm going to do a tiny little one. We're warming up our brains. don't expect too much. This is just to get your brain and your hand and your eyes to start working together. So let's say I'm gonna make it easy on myself. I mainly did web development, so I'm gonna do a little web app. Let's say we have an API and I have a, let's see, have like a front end, you'd have the front end stuff. And then you'd have like, maybe you have it in a, like, this is in a Rails something. And then this is in a, like a, this is, so I used to do this, and I wouldn't wish a Node API on anyone. I know that a lot of people do it, but I personally have done this, and I think there are better languages for it. Don't at me. Yeah, stuff like that. So hopefully you've kind of been thinking through your system. This is not meant to be the greatest scribble ever. Oh, can you see it? Oh, there we go. It's frozen again. Yay. There we go. I think it just like goes to sleep. But if I keep it up, I can just wake it up again. Not a big deal. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Which means probably, I don't know if you can see this, but here we go. And were there any questions that people popped in?
No, there's just a comment that someone's working on a telehealth app.
Telehealth, okay. Yep, telehealth. I know I did, one thing I've done was like a chatbot. So you could have like chatbot, things like that. Okay, so moving on. We are going to continue with warming up our brains. And so this is like, it's a little bit of a secret, but most things that people draw are made up of these basic shapes right here: a square, a circle, a triangle, a line, and a dot. If you can just kind of feel comfortable with drawing these shapes. So right now, just practice drawing a bunch of these, and I will bring up my camera. Yeah, so circle. If you think your circle isn't round, try just going over it a few times, and it'll definitely look like a circle. But triangles, we've got different type of triangles. Just, you're just scribbling, just warm up the hand. This is very important for the brain and the hand. Different kind of lines like this. Maybe a dotted line. Let's see. Square. You can draw different funky shapes like quadrilateral, parallelogram. Yeah, so this is like, I do this a lot when I start drawing anything. But it really is true. Like, here, let's draw a cat. So here's the little face. That's a circle. 2 little eyes. Those are 2 dots. Little nose is a triangle. And the mouth, 2 little lines. Tongue, because why not? And then the ears. Triangles. And let's make it a fat cat. So big puffy little tummy, some paws, and a tail. Simple shapes, and I promise you can do it. So yeah, so I want to, like, I don't know that I want to just leave it for 10 minutes given our format, because I'm not sure that would be the most interesting thing. But let's try this. So in addition to having basic shapes, I think that it's good to pay attention to how you are drawing these. And like, especially if you hate your handwriting or you don't think you can draw, sometimes focusing on this type of thing can really help you. So let's try an example. I'm going to draw some triangles really fast. It's okay. And yes, I admit I have more experience at drawing. But let's slow down. Pick a shape. And now that you've drawn it fast, try drawing it really slowly. Notice how if you're drawing really slowly, you have a lot more control. I'm learning calligraphy right now, and calligraphy requires slowing down. Like, if you look on Instagram and you see calligraphy videos, they're going, that's because they speed up the video. In reality, calligraphy is like very slow. So, the other tip is, like I drew this pretty small. Try drawing things larger. So let me try to draw a larger triangle. This can be very helpful if you hate your handwriting or if people tell you that they can't read it. The two tips are try going slower and making it larger. So, and while you're drawing your shapes, try going slower and making it larger at the same time. And maybe it's like I just picked up my pen. Maybe it's more than one stroke. Let's see. And wavy. So let's make a wavy circle. That looks kind of like a cloud. Or like, you know, like a thought bubble. And I included a couple of other shapes just because I find that these are very common. And these aren't like, these are a little more complicated, but not that much. Like this cloud is just like as we did earlier, wavy lines. But I like drawing my clouds this way for some reason. I'm sure I stole it from somewhere because the best art is always stolen. It's like big curve, little curve. Big curve, two little curves. Big curve, little curve. Big curve, little. You get the idea. And I want to see do we have any questions or comments right now?
Yeah, we have a question from someone who asked, how do we draw a system when there are so many unknowns?
Well, think about what you do now. So like maybe you work on a team, like a smaller team that works on a tiny part of something that's really huge. So if you're doing that, you know, it's like maybe this is what you work on and you have a whole lot of like, there's all of this that's contained in the system as well. And so I would start with like, maybe you draw out these bits that are, what do you know versus what do you don't know? Right? Like maybe this is the question, but I know about this bit right here. And I would say that at that point, this is where you can start investigating these bits. And, you know, this stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum. There are people around you who are also working on this. And this can be like, you know, I'm an introvert too. I think that this kind of drawing is a great conversation starter, because you can go to someone and say, hey, I'm trying to draw out this bit of the system. You know, is there anybody who can help me just like understand like what this looks like? So this is where you're really harnessing the power of drawing, because now you're communicating with other people on your team about what even does this do? You know, and there can be unknowns, like once somebody else is interacting with your system, or once your system's interacting with another system, you know, that's where communication is happening, and that you're not always going to know. But it's about like, well, you're not going to know exactly what's happening 100% of the time, but you know, that's the case for any system. So hopefully that helps to answer your question a little bit. And yeah, like I really want to encourage you to, you know, you can think about bits that you know about, but maybe like draw out bits that you don't and that you can talk to other people about. And that's actually started a lot of cool conversations when I've been working on things, because I tend to try to make drawings, and if they're not, you know, if I can't figure it out, I'm going to go talk to somebody. And a drawing is like a lot easier than, you know, it's like, hey, I'm trying to make this drawing. So I hope that helps. And I hope, let's see. So I hope folks got to practice with some of these shapes. And I want to talk for just a second about light and shadow. I'm not going to go really deep into this, but it is good to have an awareness. And for this, I'm going to bring back my markers. Let me do this real quick. Hello, wake up. And so if there are other questions, if y'all are thinking of questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. Okay. Light and shadow. So there are a couple of things that I think it's interesting to notice in this sketch. And I don't expect anyone, like, I can't draw like this. I am never going to be able to draw like this. Yeah, like this is considered like the best something. So please don't feel like you ever have to be drawing to this level. It's really pretty extreme. So what we want to notice here is like there are kind of 3 levels of color happening here. And so we've got black lines, right? Like the lines are black, like the hand, and I shouldn't have started doing this because this is going to be so bad. But you know, this, then you got this thing right here. These are all like our dark lines that help us understand the definition. So dark lines. Right above that, we have like the pencil. It looks like pencil shading. So I'm going to say that's more like this kind of medium shade. Wow, that looks like crap, but that's okay. And then I'm going to bring in the white pen, which is, it's good. You'll get to see what that looks like because it's really cool. So, and then notice that like here we've got a bunch of white. And so what Leonardo is doing here, so here's like here's some white on top of the medium. The reason why I want to focus on this is just to kind of see like how it makes things pop out. So typically, the darker a color is, the further away it's gonna your thing is gonna look, or the more draped in shadow. Like we're gonna notice this dark bit less probably than this. And probably he had a light source. I'm guessing that the light source was like right above these hands, because we like the brightest bit is the white bits right here and right here. And so I think that it's good to understand like just a little bit about what it means when you're using a line that's very dark versus a line that's sort of medium color, and something that's lighter, like this white pen. So you can think about like, and I did this earlier, but I'll do it again just because we're here with this particular drawing. Like if you draw a box and you want to set it off, like this is your heading. You really want people to see this thing. If you give it some shadow like this, it's going to pop off the page a little bit more. And just as we like in HTML, you have the H1 heading. This is like a really simple but easy way to kind of set off things that are on your page, right? So if you want to direct people's attention to something, you can kind of think about like, how am I highlighting that bit versus like, well, maybe this is a background process or something that is part of the mix here, but it's not like the main thing I want people to focus on. Light and shade is kind of a more advanced topic, but I did want to show you this because it's worth having even just kind of like a basic awareness of it. And I want to check and see if there are any questions about that before we move on to our, oops, spoiler, onto our next thing. And I'll let y'all kind of think about it. We can come back to it, but if you have questions, pop them in the chat. Okay, got any Mandalorian fans out there? So we have just explored using basic shapes: circle, square, triangle, lines, dots. So either you can look at this Baby Yoda that I have here, or you can find something else, just something. It can be a photo, an object in a photo, or an object that's on your desk. But look at that thing. Look at the object. Look at Baby Yoda. What kind of basic objects do we see in here? And I'm going to, let's see. Let me get a blank page. Yeah, just kind of find like, I don't know, it can be like a plant or something. I'll do good at this one. Let's use this one. Okay. So I am gonna go in here and we're gonna do some drawing with basic shapes here. And I'm gonna use Baby Yoda, but feel free to use any other thing that you have. Okay, so Baby Yoda's head. It's kind of like a flat circle, kind of like more symmetrical like this. And on purpose, I'm not going to try to do all his little wrinkles and all his little hairs and things like that. I'm just talking basic shapes. So we've got like his little head, and then the ears kind of look like triangles to me. And it looks, the bottom part of the ear looks a little bit curvy, so I'm going to do that. He's so cute. And his eyes look like dots, but they look like they're, you know, like they're big dots. So I'm going to use this Tombow brush pen to make some big dots here. And let's see, his mouth is a little line. He has quite a resting bitch face, which I love. And what else? Actually, we can draw like the pink bit of the ears is kind of triangle within a triangle, like that. But I'm not going to do the last line. And then we have this here. So to add a little bit of character, I will add a few lines, like he has little worried eyebrows. Carrying a lot of weight on his little shoulders for such a small little person. And since I do have the white pen, I'm going to add a little bit of in this photo at the top left, I can see some like light in his eyes. I'm going to add a little bit of that. And there we go. And now he's ready for somebody to color him in. So like if you have kids, I think this kind of practice is fun because you can practice drawing like the object with your shapes, and then you can let your kids color it in, and then you're both doing art together, which is, I think that's the best, is when you're kind of connecting with someone over art. So any questions right now?
Yeah, we have two questions. One of them says, would you use your requirements package to design the first system process map? And then the second one is, what about multi-cluster database systems?
Okay. The first one, can you read that one out again?
Yeah, sure. So it says, would you use your requirements package to design the first system process map?
You could. And I think that when you're planning things like in the requirement phase and you're drawing out a big system, that's exactly the time when you want to start drawing. Like when you're kind of germinating these ideas and you're trying to make all these decisions about what's in and what's out, right? Like, are we going to include this in the requirements? What's that all going to look like together? So I would say that this is actually the time when you want to start putting that down on paper, as opposed to go make some big complicated digital design that nobody feels like they can change. There is a difference in the way that people perceive paper versus a digital drawing. Like this is just a sketch. Like, just flip the page and do it again. I could probably do this Baby Yoda again, because I just drew it. So I would totally do that. And it won't look like what your final thing is going to be, but that's software. The second question, multi-cluster database. I want to come back to that. I think there's kind of a clue in the name of it, multi-cluster database. And yeah, like I want to encourage the person with that question to think about, like, how do you want to represent a database? It can be any shape that you want. I know there's like the cylinder that, here, I'll draw it. I know that we commonly use to depict a database, but it doesn't have to be that. Like, you can always turn it into that. So like, let's see, Baby Yoda head, right? Flat circle. take the Baby Yoda head, 2 straight lines, bottom edge. And that's like a pretty common way to say DB. I know that's like how it is in all the diagramming software, but it also doesn't have to be that complicated. Like if it's you and you're trying to figure things out, it can just be a circle. But, you know, I don't think this is a particularly complicated one to draw. And if you Google database, you're probably going to come across this. Yeah, and I think that databases now are complicated enough that it might not just be one of these, right? Like if you have multiple clusters, maybe it's like this is the housing, but inside here we have multiple things happening. So those are just a few ideas, and I encourage you to kind of like experiment as we're going through this with like what is it you're wanting to communicate about that. And you'll see a little bit more, like I have a little framework I've set up for thinking through this type of thing, because indeed, these are complicated things. So I think these are both great questions. Okay. So we've been playing a little bit with basic objects, and now we're to a part that I really like, that I think really makes the sketches come alive, which is sketching people and actors. And what do I mean by actors? I mean, it's like we've all worked on these things where it's like system talking to another system. You know, not everything is totally user-facing. And so you can still find, you can still represent parts of your system as like a sort of like, maybe not a person, but some humanoid type of thing, because that's going to make it more relatable and maybe easier to think about how the communication's going between the systems. So I know like a lot of us know how to draw stick people, which is fine. You know, this is a decent place to start. But I want to kind of go through a few other types of people just to give you some choices. And it might be that one of these resonates for you more than another one. Like tooth people are very simple. And I like using tooth people because if you need to draw a group, you can do that pretty easily. So see, I'll just repeat what I did there. It's a wavy line and some circles. It's really simple. Then we've got star people. And I know like one person in the Let's Sketch Tech community has really taken, like she's just taken star people and kind of run with it. And her Instagram is like all drawings that she does using star people, which I think that's really cool. And let's see. Oh, ice cream people are really fun. These are simple to draw. I had a teammate at IBM who, like, he was always drawing people like this. And I like it because this kind of has a heart in it, which I think anytime we see a heart, it just kind of reminds us about, like, the fact that we are talking about a human person versus just some, like, you know, a human person is not a machine. They have a beating heart and they have thoughts and complicated lives and things like that. And so it helps us maybe have a little more empathy with our users. Let's see. And my colleague, what I thought was really cool that he did, he had a different way of drawing robots. He would give them a square head. We worked on a lot of chatbots together. So there was a lot of this happening. I guess that's oh, whoopsie. I can draw, I promise. you know, chatbot. And also box people. I think box people are great because you can actually kind of include a little bit of the story about what's going on in the box person. Like maybe this is in the case of our in the case of our multi-cluster database, maybe this is a particular cluster. Oh yeah, and I should say I'm not an expert on multi-cluster databases, so you'll have to forgive me if I'm not exactly getting the technical details right. But this can be a way to have like maybe a database, like if you're drawing it out, it doesn't have arms, but it has little feet. Maybe this is cluster 2 and cluster, yeah, so it can, you have like a little square here. Just an idea. Yeah, and so one other thing that I want to stop and cover a little bit is just skin color, because I think it's important to represent the diversity of skin color. So I have like a few different pens that I use, and whenever I'm drawing people, I'm always going to go back and find a way to include some, well, I turned that one into a database, so find a way to include some representation. Right? Like, I think this is really important. And it's the world that we live in, you know? So, there we go. Any questions about drawing people?
None about people, but you did get a question asking, have you ever used sketchnoting or sketching for prototyping products or services? And do you have any examples?
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's see. So examples, I don't immediately have at my fingertips to show you because this took, as you can see, this took quite a lot of setup today. But yes, in fact, paper prototyping, if you know, like if you have a lot of sticky notes, I'll just show you like, so this is my, this is kind of a crossover. There's a thing called creative journaling, but what I find is that it's also kind of like prototyping a UI. Like this is my Kanban board that I have right here. Like think about prototyping a Trello. You can use the washi tape to make different columns, different parts of the interface. And I love using sticky notes to sort of like make pieces that are like interactive pieces, you know? And this is something that I've done before when I've been working with clients. Yeah, like I think that's its own topic, but it is a thing. And yeah, like, so I love that question, and I actually think it's a whole other class too. But thanks for popping it in there, and I hope that this gives you some ideas. Like, if you wanna prototype your UI, I think it's good to get handy with this with your Post-its. These are regular size Post-its that I cut into pieces. So like think of these as the story in a Trello board, or hello, wake up.
All right, sweet. I actually have 2 more questions relating to box people, if you'd like to take them up.
Sure.
All right, sweet. So the first one is, are box people various designs acceptable in formal process maps?
So I would say that this is on the side of you are sketching out things to show before you want to go into your formal documentation. This is not part of formal process maps. I am aware of the entire area of like you have the UML and you have different technical diagrams, and those are very important. That is sort of like, I think that's what you get to if you are more in the phase of you have your product together and now it's time to put together a digital image that you're going to show to millions of users. This box people is more on the side of how does this work? How are we going to get this to work together? What are we doing? What are the pieces here? So yeah, that's what I would say about that. And I'm glad that you brought that up because it's like a major difference, I think.
Sweet. And then the second question is, seems like you anthropomorphize a lot of technical terms. How can we generate relatable metaphors for our tech?
Yes, we are going to cover metaphors in just a second. Yeah, like I'm about to cover that specifically, so I'm going to hold off on that one for just a moment. Right now, I want to come back to our, like, remember at the beginning when we're like, okay, let's draw the most basic, picture of our system that we can draw. And now that we've been doing some basic shapes, I want y'all to take a minute and use everything that we've kind of gone over and draw your system again. Let's see. And I'm going to draw mine again too. Let's see. And any other questions while we're kind of drawing this?
No other questions, but Abby said that they're loving it so far. And people love clouds. Yeah. People also said they love history, so that's great.
Yeah. It's like I want to I love tech, and that's why I stayed in it for so long. I also have an arts background, and I love like where we are right now with tech, and having watched it change over time. I just see it getting more complicated, and I think knowing the tech is great, but I think now that we're at such a complicated phase, like we're not just talking about a database anymore, we're talking about a multi-cluster database. I think that it's more important, it becomes more important to, understand all of these things and be able to pull them in when you need them. Well, that's a little bit of a soapbox, but there you go. Okay, so hopefully you have like another little sketch of your system. It's not the last time we're going to do it today. But so there, as I've been saying, there is brain science behind this, a whole lot of brain science. And one of the brain science things is pareidolia, and the fact that as humans, we are really great at seeing things in things. So if you've ever heard of like the Jesus on a piece of toast, that is exactly what this concept is. And that's kind of like, we're starting to get into this world of metaphor and anthropomorphizing. And like, just to do a fun little experiment with us, and I'm going to bring my camera back and I'll do it with you. So this is a fun brain exercise. Take your pen, and I'm going to close my eyes. Close your eyes and just like do some scribbles. I don't know what I'm writing. Like, I can't see this at all. Okay. Here's the challenge. Try to find parts of your system in your scribble. Yes, it is a weird thing to ask for, but like I want us to kind of connect with this idea of seeing things in things. And I love the brain because it it has a way of pulling these things out. And if you give yourself like a little scribble like this, and it's like, okay, you know, I know this is an odd exercise she's asking me to do, but let me just see, like, is there something about my system in here? You know, like, I don't know. I did end up with a couple of loops. Maybe this is like cluster number 1 and cluster number 2 and cluster number 3 and cluster number 4. Yeah, and maybe like, I don't know, shards. Are we doing shards? I totally just threw that out as a keyword that I've heard of. I have no idea what that means in the world of multi-cluster databases, but let's just say, like, this is a shard. Yeah, go ahead and laugh at me. I really don't care. But, you know, maybe these are two different geolocations. You know, like this is like this one is US East. I know I'm talking to Microsoft, and that's like a AWS reference, which, you know, that's horrible too, but, you know, here we are. And this is another location, like this is West. I really want to know how y'all are going with this, so please put a comment in the chat. Is it blowing your mind? Is it like, what the heck, lady? Are you finding some pieces in there? Let us know. Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too much of a departure. So this is like this is my nicer example of this, my fancy one that I took some time to work on this. But I'm like, okay, application memory, what's in there? And I was thinking about, like, what are all the pieces in application memory? I think this is in JavaScript, and it's like, yes, you have globals, instructions, there's a stack, there's a heap, things like that. And to me, it's like, wow, that kind of sounds like the stuff that's in the entryway to my apartment. Like, you know, instructions and globals are like in these books that are printed, you know how many pages are in there. The stack is my basket of sweaters. Sometimes it overflows because I am really crap at folding sweaters. And the heap is a pile of shoes, which I'm a shoes off person in the house. So my shoes are kind of all over the place at the entrance, much to my husband's chagrin. Yeah, so this is just to say you don't necessarily have to do scribbling, doodling with this. You can also like take some time and really think about it. And I love this because it lets everyone have their own aesthetic. Like, maybe your entryway and the closet and decorating isn't your thing, but maybe, I don't know, maybe it's some kind of like video game that you play or something else. So that's just to say, like, all of these are kind of a way for you to connect with it in your own way. And that's very important when it comes to this stuff, because the more you can connect with something complicated, you know, it's going to help you explore it a little more. So any comments or questions before we move on, and we're going to get to metaphor?
None yet. The only comment was that you're hilarious.
Okay, well, we have that. I mean, it is Saturday, right? Like, and I have to thank y'all for hanging in there, because I get that 2 hours on a Saturday, that's a big commitment at this point. So the importance of metaphor. Yes, so I know we've had a question about this already, and it is part of the science of our brain and how it works. And like, it's really important to kind of connect with these metaphors, and especially if you're on a team and you're wanting to connect with others on your team. Every team has its own sense of metaphor. Yeah, and of course now I'm completely spacing on all the teams we had a team that was into Pokemon. Or I was on one once. Let's see. Star Wars, of course. Sailor Moon. I know, like, I love Studio Ghibli, and I remember this one year I was grappling with Gulp in JavaScript, and I was trying to, like, I just want to understand this and how I work with this and blah, blah, blah. And I watched Princess Mononoke at the time, which had these little things called, I think, Kodama, little forest spirits. And I don't know how, but I was like, maybe the Gulp is like Lego pieces, and, there's some Kodama, wondering what all these things are. I don't know. But this is kind of an example of really letting your brain go. Nobody has to see this if you don't want them to, but it might help you connect these things together more. And that is what is important. So think about, like, what are your favorite kind of metaphors? I would really love to see in the chat, like, if y'all have some favorite things that you want to use for your metaphor, like what that would be. And I want you to try drawing something that would be your metaphor with some of the basic shapes. And I'll do one of these on my paper. Let me get my camera up. Yep, gonna listen to a podcast later. And okay, do we have any metaphors in our chat yet?
None yet.
Well, let's see. I'm going to draw. I'm just going to pick one that's on here because I'm feeling lazy. I will pick Sailor Moon because she's awesome. So basic shapes. Again with the basic shapes. I think I'm just going to draw her head like this. She has two little space puffs on either side. Those are like two little circles. Then it looks like we've got her neck is just two little lines, and then we've got the big fancy collar, of course, which that's a triangle. Triangle and a triangle, okay? Yeah, and she's got like the 90s choker, two lines, little moon. Let's see. She's got some bangs and a heart. I actually like that. I don't think my hair would ever do that, but and then we're gonna do some rectangles here. And she's got those big anime eyes, of course. Let's see. I'm going to pull out my Tombow again for this. Y'all can probably guess what I'm going to do. I'm going to put in, just fill this in like this, and then go in with the white again. Okay. Yeah, tiny nose, tiny mouth. And a big bow. Circle. Bow is like, I don't think it's necessarily just triangle. I think it's more like a quadrilateral, like this. There. So is anyone brave enough to come forward with their favorite metaphor?
Anik commented flowers.
Yay, that's a great metaphor. Flowers, botanicals, succulents. Yes, very much, very much. Okay. So this is also definitely the kind of thing you can Google. So like if I have a particular flower that I have in mind, I would go Google that, or you know, succulents. And you know, if you think of flowers, you can think of like a garden, or maybe it's a wildflower that's growing in a forest, or you know, how do flowers kind of sit with each other in a garden? That type of thing. And that is going to bring it so much closer to you, and then also to your teammates. A bonus of this is if you're talking about these metaphors with your teammates, you get to know something about them. You know, like, I mean, I'm a little bit older than the Pokemon generation, but hey, I love me a Pikachu. And I wouldn't know about it if I hadn't, you know, been trying to draw and asking people about, like, I just love to know about my teammates and know kind of what motivates them. So this is like a great way to kind of get in touch with that. Okay, so we've covered basic shapes. We've covered seeing things and things and metaphor. And I want to know if y'all have any specific questions about metaphor. I know someone earlier was wanting to know. They had a question. I was like, hey, let's wait. If you have questions about any of that stuff, feel free to pop it in. And we're going to move on to some different types of drawings, or different types of diagrams you can draw. Okay. So now we're going to move on to just kind of a few different types of ways that I like to draw systems. And again, like, this is not rooted in formal methods and formal diagrams. This is totally like you connecting to your brain and doodling so you can communicate about a system, or so you can explore a system, or things like that. So the first thing is like things in the system. Application memory. What are the pieces that make up application memory? Another type is like sequence. So, and this might be like, yeah, like this one is TDD. Is it? Yeah, this is TDD. This is where I'm breaking down test-driven development a little more than just like the red, green rewrite. And let's see, I think I have another sequence one too. Sequence is pretty big. And these are some of the things that I created while I was at IBM to just sort of like talk about what we were doing in the garage. And it's sort of like it's very much a like MVP prototyping kind of a process. So, and this kind of shows like, this is kind of a different way to show sequence. Like maybe you have I could see like this would be like a milestone, like if you had a project milestone. But these two things are very different, right? Like this was our design thinking where we have people come together and you kind of collaboratively go through like, what does this thing even need to be? What's the smallest thing it can be? And then over here on this side, this is an actual app or an actual software system that we're gradually building up. And so that's like another way to kind of model sequence. And then there's like the sequence of the week, right? Like this is sort of an iterating sequence. Actually, this one was too, but this is like more if it's something that's in a cycle. And yeah, y'all might be familiar with like agile sprints. This is another flavor of them, an iteration. And then I think the last main type that I'm going to cover is the back and forth, which so in this one, this is just like the length, I think the length in JavaScript or something. I don't know. Maybe this was Java. I don't know. Yes, but this is sort of like, well, what is this? Our list is empty, but what does it mean? So in this kind of back and forth, this could be like an API talking to a, I don't know, a Rails app, or, excuse me, your database talking to your application. One cluster talking to another. Database person, you're going to have to forgive me. I'm just walking all over your system. And I have no clue. And I'm just like, oh, hey, these clusters, well, I'm sure the clusters talk to each other somehow. Let's see. I did take a distributed computing class, but it was a while ago and it was all in Java. Yeah, so in fact, if anyone has ever heard of The Little Lisper, it was a book written a really long time ago, and it was like to teach people how to use Lisp. No, it was Scheme. Maybe it was Scheme. Is Scheme a Lisp? I think it is. Showing my age, but the whole book is written as a conversation. And if you're reasoning, if you are exploring like what exactly is happening and which part is doing what, this kind of back and forth diagram can be really helpful because you're having, it's like you're explaining it to yourself. So do we have questions about any of these before we move on to like kind of this section where we bring it all together?
We do have a couple questions, but not about this topic in particular. So maybe we can come back to those at the end.
Okay. Let's see. So, okay. So we've just gone through a whole bunch of different aspects of sketching out a system and how to draw and things like that. You've drawn your system a couple of times. And this is sort of the framework that I put together to kind of help like bring it all together. So when you're thinking about your system, think about this sentence. I want to understand blah, so that blah. This connects your outcome that you want, your reason for drawing this sketch, with what is the thing you want to understand. And those two things are pretty important because something that you're going to show to other people, you might think about it in a different way and sketch it out differently than if you're just like drawing it for yourself. So that gives you a way to think about that, and then pick your metaphor. Like, you don't have to. If you just want to work with shapes, I think that can be fine too. But we went over why metaphor is a powerful thing. And then pick a type of sketch. And we went over a few. It doesn't have to be any of those. It's kind of up to you. But I wanted to show you those different ones just so that you know, you could have like some examples. And then use basic shapes to sketch. And I have run out of water, so I'm just gonna run and fill up my water glass. And I'm gonna let y'all just kind of sit for a minute and work on your doodles. If you think of a question, pop it into the chat. Or if you wanna, you know, work on any of your other doodles, that's fine. This is only gonna take me like a minute, so I'll be right back, okay? I trust Iman to babysit everyone.
All good, Marlena.
Okay, and I'm back. Let's see. So, do we have any questions so far?
Yeah, so one of them was a comment that just said, I feel like my drawing might help me understand my version of system design, but most probably it will mess up understanding of system design for others, and like a smiley face with that. Another person said, it would be nice if we had more people like you on our software development teams, which is great. And then the third question was, are there any copyright concerns from doodling characters?
I love that question, and thank you for asking. So, I think the thing to ask yourself is how are you going to publish it? Are you going to be trying to make money off of it? Like, if it's a doodle you're making for yourself, who cares? If it's a doodle that you're just going to show to your teammate, who cares? If it is something that will make it into the documentation, that's where I think you would want to, you know, probably wouldn't want to do that. Also, I'm not a copyright lawyer, so this isn't legal advice. This is just, but yeah, like if it's something that's sort of more informal, then, you know, I don't think anybody's going to care. If it's sharing within your team, you know, I think it's fine. I wouldn't try to, like, I would never try drawing this stuff and then selling it on a, like, sketch or something. I wouldn't do that. And that's a good question. Any other questions before we move on?
Nope, you can go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so now that y'all have had a few minutes with drawing your system, these are like a couple of different ways to jumble it up in your brain a little more, as if I haven't played with it enough. So, and I think this is really fun, and I've gotten feedback that people really like this one. So draw a little grid on your piece of paper and draw your system several times, but only take 10 seconds for each drawing. And you can try doing this while I talk about it a little bit, and then we'll move on. So what I find is that it kind of forces your brain to learn what you're drawing, you know, and you kind of, this also helps you to figure out which shapes are going to help you the most. which ones do you keep coming back to? Because those might be ones that you want to refine later. But this is also like, it just like, it's really forcing you to think through the thing. So you'll learn it. Like, this is a good way if you're trying to get ready to explain something to someone else. This is a good exercise. So if you were hurriedly drawing while I was talking about this, the other exercise is after you've restricted yourself like that, give yourself 5 minutes to draw the whole thing. And this is a great way to kind of see, like, you're gonna feel that relief in your brain, like, I can just take my time after you forced yourself to do it so quickly. And then you can kind of go back and add more detail to certain pieces, or figure out like, hey, I really didn't know what I was doing on this bit right here. Let me go make sure I know what I'm doing there. And I think those two things together are pretty powerful. And I kind of hinted at this, but it's also like the next level is building up your visual vocabulary. And I'm going to do a plug for the next Let's Sketch Tech meetup, because we have a professional graphic recorder, Ashton Rodenheiser, is going to be joining us on February 16th, and she is going to be talking about this type of thing. So developing your visual vocabulary is, which shapes do you keep reaching for? Like, I think this is one of those things that'll help you kind of dig out what is in there. What do you keep having to draw over and over? You can make a shorthand for yourself so that you know, certain pieces, you know how you want to draw it. And of course, like, there are probably a lot of engineers in here, and you know, we all know that there's like, this is kind of beginning of our own our own language, our own visual language. And like, that's pretty cool, right? Like, that's part of your expertise, is that you are, when you're drawing, you're learning, and explaining is also learning, right? Like, you really have to know what is going on in the system to be able to explain it and talk about it. And so yeah, that's part of your expertise, is to kind of like develop, well, these are the pieces I'm going to draw, and this is how I'm going to draw them, and this means this, and this means this. You might also have to change it up one day, you know, because our systems are always changing. But yeah, so to get started on a visual vocabulary, I think this is kind of like the exercise I'm going to leave you with, is just draw a grid on your paper. At this point, we've drawn your system several times today, and you know which pieces you've been working with. So in each square, just put one of those pieces, or, you know, write the name down, and you can kind of fill it in later. But this will be the beginning of your visual vocabulary. And so that is what I have for you. And hopefully, like, I really want you to keep sketching. And that's why, like, I know that I plug my stuff a lot, but it's because I kind of unlocked this power for myself. And I just want to share it with people, because it really helped me so much. I'm going to pop, this is linked to the Sketch It kit, and then I'm going to pop the link to the Patreon for Let's Sketch Tech in here again. And I want to open it up for any questions that people have, or anything you want to go back to. I think we have like, yeah, like we said 2 hours, but it's Saturday, and I know we all want a refund on a little bit of our time.
Yeah, so Marlena, we have a couple of questions. One person thanked you for your comment about the copyright-related claims, and they said that they would be using them in presentations for community events.
Yeah, like I'm that's kind of like, I think it can be okay. As I said, I'm not a copyright lawyer, but I've seen plenty of Star Wars references in conference talks, and as far as I know, none of those people got sued. So
Yeah, I think they're doing okay.
yeah, I think so.
Great. And then the other one was, what software do you use to draw the sketches?
I use Procreate on my iPad and the Apple Pencil. That said, if you've never drawn on an iPad before, I also recommend Paper by 53. That is the app that I started using because it's much more simplified. And it just, like, I needed that. I couldn't just, I would try to open the more complicated apps and just see all the stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what to click on. And Procreate at this point is a little bit like that, but Paper by 53, I think if you haven't used any of those kind of digital drawing apps before, is simplified enough that it's going to give you just enough to play around, but you know, it's not as overwhelming. However, Procreate is kind of a default, and if you're expecting to continue drawing digitally, there are tons of YouTube tutorials, and it's actually not that hard once you spend a little bit of time ramping up. So yeah.
Great. So, I mean, those are all the questions we have so far. Unless folks have any others, please add them to the chat. Marlena, I was just going to mention that there's actually a Q&A tab. Right now you're in the meeting chat section, which would just be for you and I. So if you see a little chat box in the same window, maybe hover under my photo or press the X next to the meeting chat. Do you see a little, maybe the 3 dots at the bottom there? Next to it, yep. I don't know if it pulls up a Q&A for you, but that's where we were actually getting the comments from attendees. I'm not sure where it is right now.
It's somewhere.
It's somewhere, yeah. That's about it. A lot of folks saying that they're really enjoying it. Anik said that she enjoys drawing her amaryllis for still life when you talk about metaphors.
Yay. Yeah, like that's so important. Like those things that bring you joy in your personal life, there's got to be a way to bring them into work sometimes, you know. And we're already mixing the personal and professional so much, and especially during the pandemic and stuff, it's like there has to be a way to kind of find and connect with the things that make you happy in your day-to-day life. And I want to thank everyone for spending part of your Saturday with me. Hey, good job. I'm going to give you some claps and stop sharing my screen. Yeah, like camera, turn camera on. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, like great job. You know, it takes a lot sometimes to be able to say, to fight against that, oh, I'm an engineer, I can't draw. Like, the truth is, it doesn't matter. This isn't about art. This is about like you wrestling with your brain and, you know, communicating with your teammates. And so I hope you keep sketching. And thank you so much. And thank you, Iman, for hosting.
Thank you, Marlena. This was great. I'd just like to remind everyone, if you did follow along, please share it. I'm sure Marlena would love to see all your doodles as well. Please use the hashtag. Yeah, please use the hashtag VisualizeIT. It's in the chat box. There's also a quick survey, just a couple of questions, just to let us know how you thought the session went, and we'll know, if you enjoyed it, if you have any feedback on ways we can improve, or even for Marlena to know, that'd be great. And thank you so much. We'll have the recording up shortly. All of Marlena's links are in the chat box as well, so you can follow along with her upcoming workshops with Ashton and the sketch kit and everything like that. So thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.